Your decision as to when you collect Social Security may be one of the most important decisions you make during your retirement. Now, most people will say without knowing anything that you should delay as long as you possibly should to get the highest benefit. In many cases, they're right, but in many cases, they're wrong. In today's video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons it may make sense to collect your Social Security benefit early. Hey everybody, I'm James Knoll, founder of Root Financial Partners, and I'm here to teach you what you need to know to create a secure retirement. Now, if you've ever run a Social Security analysis or had someone do it for you or do an online calculator, you probably saw something that looks like this, where you have the analysis and you plug in some very basic information. What's your age, what's your full retirement age benefit, and what's your life expectancy? Now, if that's all you're getting, you're probably going to get a chart that looks something like this. And what that chart's going to show you is there's some break-even point, and that break-even is probably around the age of 81. And based upon that, that software will probably say that if you plan to live past age 81, it makes more sense for you to delay. Well, it's not necessarily wrong, but a lot of these tools operate on such basic and limited information, they can't possibly give you a full analysis. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through 5 instances in which case that software may not be giving you the best possible results and when it could possibly make more sense to collect early. The first instance in which it might make sense to collect Social Security early is if you don't have a long life expectancy. That's probably the most obvious example of when it might make sense to collect early. Now, a simple breakdown, if you look at the Social Security analysis, says that the break-even age is age 81. At that point, you're more likely to be better off collecting later and having a higher benefit if you're going to live past age 81, and you're more likely to come out with more cumulative lifetime benefits if you don't think that you'll live until age 81. So from that standpoint, pretty simple analysis. A lot of people, they look at this and say, okay, well in the USA, the life expectancy is age 79. So shouldn't most people collect earlier than that because age 81 is longer than the average life expectancy? Well, quick note on that is you don't want to look at life expectancy as a whole. Life expectancy as a whole is including people who didn't make it to age 50 or 60 or 70. So you don't necessarily want to look at that as the right metric. What you want to do is look at the life expectancy of people who are 62 and older. So say you're 62 years old, for example. Well, a male that's age 62 has a 20-year life expectancy, a little bit over 20-year life expectancy. A 62-year-old female has a life expectancy of about 23 years. So as you can see, that's going to put them between early to mid 80s, which is higher than the average life expectancy of 79, which includes people starting at birth. So the first thing that you want to look at is understand what life expectancy metrics are most applicable to you, which is life expectancy based upon your age you already are, but take into account family history, take into account health, take into account other risk factors. Understand what makes most sense for you. If you don't have a life expectancy, which of course we never fully know, but we can make some educated guesses, if you don't have a long life expectancy, it's going to make more sense to collect Social Security early. To delay your benefit, you have to live until certain ages for that cumulative benefit to have paid off over time. So the most obvious example of when does it make more sense to collect Social Security early is if you don't have a long life expectancy. Number 2, the second instance in which it might make sense to collect Social Security benefits early is if you want to keep growing your portfolio. I made a video a few weeks back, and I'll link to it later in this episode. And what it looked at is not just what if you collected your Social Security benefit, what if you collected it early versus full retirement age versus 70. What that shows is just a very simple analysis of what are your cumulative lifetime benefits if you collect at 62, so a lower benefit but collected over more years, versus what if you collected at your full retirement age, so maybe 67, meaning it's a higher benefit but not collected over as many years, versus what if you waited all the way until 70, which is the highest benefit but collected for the shortest number of years. And again, the break even on that is around age 81, where if you're going to live past age 81 in a lot of instances, you're better off collecting at 70 and beyond. That's the way most software shows it and the most analysis is done. It's too simple though. What that's not taken into account is the opportunity cost of your portfolio. If you retire at 62 and you delay your Social Security all the way until 70, you're having to draw down your portfolio to make up the difference. So what that analysis, that simple analysis doesn't take into account is the opportunity cost of what would those funds have been growing by had you not been collecting earlier. And what we saw in that video I did was if you are continuing to leave those funds invested, what that's doing is it's pushing out that break-even age till much later points in the future, sometimes significantly longer, depending of course on what rate of return you can expect. So if you're collecting early and it's allowing your portfolio to continue growing, you may be in a situation where the break-even age is no longer age 81, but it's much further in the future. So don't just look at Social Security from the linear standpoint of looking at it in a vacuum of this is all that exists. Understand how your Social Security decisions also impact your portfolio and its ability to keep growing or its need to continue creating income for you, and see what impact it has there as well. The third reason it might make sense to collect Social Security early is if there's a significant age gap between spouses. Let's look at an extreme example. Let's assume that you've got a couple and they both have maxed out their Social Security earnings, which means at age 70, they're both eligible for about $4,200 per month, which is the highest possible benefit you could have in 2022 at the age of 70. So if you're looking at that, your immediate reaction might be, wow, they should both wait until age 70 because that's a lot of money coming in if they both defer. Could make sense. But let's use an extreme example. What if there's a 30-year age gap between those spouses? What if one is age 92 and one is age 62? Well, that 92-year-old probably doesn't have an incredibly long life expectancy. So why would the age 62-year-old spouse, if they defer their own benefit because they're trying to get to 70 and wait 8 more years, well, if their spouse passes away before 8 more years, they're eligible for a survivor benefit. So could it make more sense to collect a lower benefit but collect it immediately, start getting paid on that, knowing that if their spouse predeceases them, which statistically is very likely, they're going to be eligible for a survivor benefit. So as you're looking at it, understand not just what you're eligible for, but what your spouse is also eligible for, or what you're eligible for based upon your spouse's earnings record. If there's a significant age gap, in some cases, and that doesn't even have to be that significant necessarily, but in some cases it makes sense for one spouse to defer longer, but the other spouse to collect earlier. Now, age gap doesn't necessarily need to be the only consideration here. It's more of a life expectancy. So maybe you're 62 and your spouse isn't 92, but maybe they're 70. And maybe they're 70, but their health isn't great, and their life expectancy is only 4 or 5 years. Well, if you're 62 and saying, well, I want the maximum benefit, I'm gonna wait until 70, your spouse is already 70 and getting the maximum possible benefit, and it's likely they're not going to live longer than 4, 5, 6 more years, it might make more sense to collect your benefit sooner, get a lower amount, but at least you're collecting something for those 4, 5, 6 years, and then you're ultimately eligible for a survivor benefit based upon the older spouse who doesn't have the same life expectancy as you. So if there's a significant age gap, or if there's a life expectancy difference between spouses, that could be a very compelling reason for one spouse to begin collecting benefits early. The fourth reason it may make sense to collect Social Security benefits early is because filing for your own benefit also may unlock a family member's benefit. Let's take a look at a simple example. With Social Security, you are eligible for either your own benefit based upon your earnings record, or you're eligible for a spousal benefit, which is based upon your spouse's earnings record. So hypothetically, even if you have no earnings, no Social Security earnings, you are still eligible for up to 50% of your spouse's benefit based upon their full retirement age amount. So when you are delaying benefits, your spouse cannot collect a spousal benefit until you have collected first. So if you're both full retirement age, for example, and you say that you want to wait until 70, but your spouse is going to collect a spousal benefit that's based upon half of your benefit at age 67, well, they can't collect until you've collected first. Now, it may make sense to defer. There's a lot of instances in which it does, and this is why it's really important to get a strategy customized to you. But the longer that you delay, yes, your benefit is increasing, but their benefit is not increasing, and it's capped at that full retirement age amount. So if you were to collect early, it's not just your benefit that you're unlocking, it's also that spousal benefit. So just understand the relationship of your own benefit, a spousal benefit, a survivor's benefit, because when you understand how these all work, and when you understand how this operates in conjunction with investments and other assets, you can start to piece something together that makes most sense for you, but understand that there's a limitation of until you have collected your own benefit, your spouse is not eligible for a spousal benefit until you have collected. The fifth reason it may make sense to collect Social Security early is this: you need it. So at the end of the day, there's some instances where you just need the money. And if the choice is between collecting Social Security early or delaying Social Security and going into credit card debt because you can't make ends meet, it's probably much better to collect Social Security early. Yes, there's benefits to delaying. Yes, your benefit will go up, but sometimes you just need the money and you don't have the luxury of deferring it. Now, what you do need to understand is you do need to understand the trade-offs of the earlier you collect, you're locking in a lower benefit for the rest of your life. And so you need to have some contingencies in place of, are you going to be okay if you collect early, not just today, but 5, 10, 15 plus years from now? And if the answer is yes, and if you need the money, there may be some good reasons to collect early. So yes, it makes sense to understand all of your options. Yes, it makes sense to run different analysis and different just planning points to see what makes the most sense. But sometimes life just happens, and sometimes you just need to take it. And as long as you consider the trade-offs, taking early isn't necessarily the end of the world. Now, in summary, Social Security is a very personal decision. There's a lot of good reasons it could make sense to delay your benefit as long as possible. But sometimes people are so focused on a simple linear analysis of, if I wait this long to collect, and if I live past X age, I'm going to be better off. And in some cases, that's true. But don't forget to incorporate everything else into the decision as well. Understand age gaps or life expectancy gaps between spouses. Understand the impact on your investments. Understand your own life expectancy. Understand your own needs. Really, you want to make sure that you're considering all these different factors so that when you collect Social Security, you can make the best possible decision for you. It's one thing to know whether it's better to collect Social Security early or collect Social Security later. It's a completely different thing to understand how that impacts your investments and what has a better cumulative benefit when your entire financial picture is taken into account. Be sure to check out this video above to see the impact that collecting Social Security early has on your investments. Thanks for watching. This is James Knoll with Root Financial Partners. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to share it with someone else who you think would benefit from this information. And also, please be sure to like and subscribe for more content just like this. Finally, if you'd like to see how we help clients create a secure retirement, be sure to check out our website at rootfinancialpartners.com.